The Galactic Council sat smugly in their chamber, the latest reports from the front line flashing before them. Victory over the Charn, a vicious enemy with a reputation for brutality, was almost certain. The young, high-tech alien soldiers of the Council had pushed the Charn to the edge with seamless precision, using technology so advanced that no other race seemed able to stand against it. In their eyes, this war was a mere formality, the end as inevitable as the sunrise. In this war, humanity was considered little more than a footnote. They were granted a minor role, deemed unfit for frontline battle. The Council spoke of Earth and its people with a patronizing kind of amusement, admiring their courage, but laughing at the thought that they could ever keep up in this galactic league. The Council was far more interested in their own elite soldiers, young, tech-enhanced beings whose suits augmented their every movement, AI guiding every shot, and drone support calculating every potential threat before it even materialized. These were soldiers engineered for victory, each action synchronized like a complex dance, leaving no room for error. Then came the news of human reinforcements being sent to the front lines, a detail that barely registered in the Council's minds. It was common knowledge that humans were simply too primitive to affect the outcome. The aliens dismissed this reinforcement as perhaps a way to boost morale, nothing more. Their commanders hardly spared a glance at the approaching human transport ship. In their minds, the final assault would be wrapped up before humanity could even set foot on the field. But when the transport doors hissed open, the sight stunned the Council's alien forces nearby. Out walked human soldiers, grizzled, scarred, and older than any soldier the Council would have ever put in combat. They wore no advanced exosuits, had no AI-driven enhancements, and carried no high-tech gear. Their uniforms were worn, their equipment scratched and battered from past battles. Yet these humans moved with a weight and steadiness that hinted at something deeper than tech. To the young alien soldiers, they looked like relics, curiosities from another time. Some aliens couldn't help but laugh, murmuring to each other about the old fossils Earth had sent. To them, this wasn't a reinforcement, it was a joke. But the humans, seasoned veterans who had survived Earth's brutal wars, battles fought in the mud, in jungles, on scorched deserts and frozen wastelands, ignored the jeers. They'd faced worse than mockery. They were here not for glory, but because of a simple principle that every one of them held dear: no one gets left behind. To these soldiers, the Council's arrogance was just background noise. They were here for a purpose, and that purpose was all that mattered. One by one, the veterans surveyed the battlefield, studying the terrain with practiced eyes. Unlike the aliens, who relied on data feeds and live tactical updates, the humans needed only their instincts, honed by decades of real-world experience. They noticed what technology couldn't: the subtle rise in the ground that could provide cover, the natural choke points that could trap advancing enemies, the scattered debris that could be used as makeshift barricades. They didn't need AI to tell them how to win a battle. They knew something the alien soldiers, with all their tech, couldn't grasp: combat wasn't about algorithms, it was about survival. Every scar on their bodies, every wrinkle on their faces, was a testament to a life spent defying the odds, to victories won not by fancy gadgets, but by sheer willpower. As the alien soldiers continued to mock, one human veteran glanced over his shoulder, meeting their sneers with a steady, unflinching gaze. It was the kind of look that spoke of battles long fought and foes long forgotten. He said nothing, but the silence was louder than any taunt. These humans had come to fight, and they'd fight with everything they had. While the Council watched from afar, still believing their advanced soldiers would easily mop up the remaining Charn forces, these human veterans moved forward, taking their places without a word. The silence was heavy as the human veterans took their positions, each one seasoned by years of battles and hardships that most of the alien soldiers could only imagine. They moved with purpose, their actions deliberate, without the flash or noise of the advanced tech surrounding them. Every step was calculated, every glance a silent assessment, and every grip on their weapons a reminder of battles that had long shaped them. Around them, the alien soldiers watched, some in open disbelief, others with poorly concealed amusement. They saw old men and women, human veterans with gray hair, lined faces, and outdated gear. To them, This was an absurd sight. Alien commanders exchanged bewildered looks, wondering if Earth had misunderstood the severity of the war. They expected fresh, young fighters with newer equipment, not this group of grizzled, battle-worn soldiers who looked more like a historical reenactment than a real fighting force. Yet these veterans did not acknowledge the stares or muttered jokes. They kept their focus on the landscape before them, scanning for any advantage they could find. Their eyes traced every hill, every shadow, and every outcropping that might serve as cover or a potential trap. They didn't need AI-guided helmets to tell them how to use the land to their benefit. These were soldiers who had fought in Earth's fiercest wars, where survival wasn't guaranteed by tech but by skill, instincts, and sheer force of will. As they assessed the terrain, they seemed to communicate without words, a nod here, a hand signal there, simple gestures that conveyed all they needed to know. It was a language born from years of shared battles, one that spoke of unity and trust that went deeper than any tactical software. These men and women knew each other's strengths, weaknesses, and quirks. They didn't need machines to calculate each move, they could read the battlefield and each other with a glance. The alien troops shifted uncomfortably. The bravado that had fueled their mocking jeers began to wane as they watched the humans prepare, their confidence unwavering, their movements deliberate. For all their age and scars, these veterans had an aura of quiet menace, a stillness that spoke louder than words. They didn't seem fazed by the high-tech gear around them, nor intimidated by the younger, stronger, faster alien soldiers beside them. They were here to fight, and they didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Then, almost without warning, the first enemy assault wave appeared on the horizon, charging in formation with the precision of a machine. Alien soldiers leaped into action, relying on their suits to scan for threats, their targeting systems activating as they braced for impact. But the humans? They moved quickly but calmly, taking up defensive positions as if it were just another training exercise. For these veterans, battle was second nature, not something dictated by tech or dictated orders. As the enemy drew closer, some of the alien soldiers fired prematurely, their targeting software picking up on distant movements and flagging them as immediate threats. The humans held their fire, calm and patient, waiting for the perfect moment. When the enemy was within range, the veterans acted with ruthless efficiency. Their old-school weapons barked out in short bursts, each shot hitting its mark with precision that came from years of experience, not algorithms. They fired with discipline, conserving their ammo, never wasting a single bullet. Alien soldiers, by contrast, fought with the reckless abandon of those accustomed to technological safety nets. They relied on their suits, their AI targeting, and their drones to make up for mistakes. But when faced with the raw skill and experience of these human veterans, their tech proved insufficient. The veterans anticipated every move, every pattern. They didn't just react, they predicted, cutting off escape routes, laying ambushes, and using the terrain to funnel enemies into their line of fire. As the battle raged on, the alien forces began to falter. Their sleek, high-tech exosuits were no match for the adaptability and cunning of the humans. The Council, watching from afar, could hardly believe what they were seeing. The humans were holding the line, turning the tide of the battle in ways that no one could have predicted. Their old tactics, dismissed as outdated and ineffective, were proving to be more resilient and adaptable than the Council's most advanced strategies. The veterans' unity was unmistakable. They worked as a seamless team, covering each other without the need for words. One soldier would provide cover fire while another reloaded, moving in unison without the need for complex commands. Their actions were a testament to the bond they had formed through years of fighting together, a bond that no amount of tech or alien strategy could replicate. With each wave the enemy threw at them, the veterans grew bolder. Alien soldiers began to fall back, their confidence shaken, their reliance on technology suddenly feeling like a handicap. They watched in disbelief as the humans advanced, pushing forward with an unbreakable resolve that defied all logic. The veterans didn't tire, didn't hesitate. They moved forward with the calm determination of those who had already faced death countless times and come out the other side. The alien commanders were in a panic. Their carefully orchestrated strategies were unraveling before their eyes, undone by tactics they had never considered. For all their advanced tech, they lacked what these human veterans had in spades: adaptability, resilience, and the wisdom of experience. They had come into this battle believing that the humans would be a minor footnote, a simple addition to their forces. But now, they saw that these old soldiers were far more than that. They were game changers. As the battle wore on, the alien soldiers began to look to the humans for guidance, their initial contempt replaced by a growing respect. They saw, perhaps for the first time, the true value of experience and skill honed over a lifetime of struggle. The humans fought not just with their weapons, but with their minds and hearts, using every tool available, even those that the aliens had deemed obsolete. In the end, it wasn't the humans' weapons or armor that turned the tide of the battle, it was their will. Their unbreakable spirit, their unity, and their ability to adapt to any situation left an indelible mark on the alien soldiers and the Galactic Council alike. The Council, watching from afar, realized that they had severely underestimated humanity. These old soldiers were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting to show the galaxy that there was more to warfare than technology, that there was something powerful in the will to endure, to protect, and to never back down. The alien soldiers, who had once mocked the humans, now found themselves inspired, watching in awe as the veterans held the line, proving that true strength came not from machines but from the heart. And for the first time, the Council understood that perhaps humanity, with all its flaws and simplicity, possessed something truly extraordinary. Something that no amount of tech could replicate. As the clash continued, it became clear that the veterans weren't just holding their own, they were dismantling the enemy's strategies piece by piece. The alien soldiers, though heavily armed and shielded by cutting-edge tech, began to realize their tactical shortcomings against these seasoned humans. The Council's advanced soldiers, trained to follow the calculated maneuvers generated by their AI, found themselves completely unprepared for the veterans' unpredictable, adaptable fighting style. The battlefield that had once seemed like a display of alien superiority was now a stage for human resilience. Every action the veterans took seemed to serve a purpose. They were masters of improvisation, responding to the chaos around them with calm efficiency, shifting strategies based on instinct rather than relying on data feeds. A quick nod or glance between them was all it took to form new tactics on the fly. They moved as a single, cohesive unit, with each soldier anticipating the moves of the others without a word. This silent coordination stunned the alien soldiers who depended on commands and digital support to synchronize their actions. It wasn't long before the veterans' presence began to unravel the Council's frontline. Alien soldiers were trained to respond to expected behaviors, to read and react based on patterns that their software could recognize. But the veterans didn't fight according to patterns. They set up decoys, used unexpected angles of attack, and took advantage of every piece of terrain. Where the Council's soldiers would have relied on drones and scanners to map out enemy positions, the veterans used their senses, adapting as the fight demanded. Alien commanders, watching their forces buckle, tried desperately to recalibrate their strategies, adjusting their soldiers' protocols to counter the humans. But they were too late. The veterans anticipated these adjustments and countered them effortlessly, displaying a mastery of psychological warfare that no software could replicate. They could sense when the enemy was on edge, and they pressed harder, attacking precisely when the alien soldiers were at their most vulnerable. As the alien forces attempted to regroup, the veterans made a daring move. They split into smaller teams, each tasked with disrupting specific points in the enemy's formation. Alien soldiers had been trained for close combat efficiency, but the humans had spent their lives perfecting the art of tactical disruption. These weren't blind charges. They were calculated risks, each team focusing on breaking apart the cohesion of their foes. Alien ranks started to break under the pressure, unable to withstand the barrage of relentless, unpredictable tactics. The Council, monitoring from a distance, struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing. Reports showed that human casualties were far fewer than anticipated, even with their supposedly inferior technology. The Council's military analysts, perplexed, began to reconsider their assumptions. How could these humans, with their outdated weapons and simple armor, be performing so well against one of the most technologically advanced forces in the galaxy? The reality became clear to them. The veterans had the one thing the alien soldiers lacked: adaptation born from hard-won experience. While the Council soldiers were trained to be precise, they had never been pushed to improvise, to make choices in the heat of battle without the crutch of digital support. The veterans had fought wars on Earth that had forced them to rely solely on wits and courage. They'd learned to use everything available, to turn disadvantages into advantages, and to exploit any weakness the enemy might show. The battle wore on, and the Council's forces began to fall back, their confidence shaken as these primitive humans continued their relentless push. Alien soldiers, who had once viewed humans with contempt, now found themselves struggling to keep up, their tactics unraveling against the veterans' clever, improvised maneuvers. Every attempt by the aliens to regroup or rally was met with swift resistance. The veterans moved with an uncanny sense of timing, knowing precisely when to push and when to pull back. Alien morale began to waver as they witnessed the resilience of the human veterans. Despite their advanced weaponry and armor, they couldn't seem to match the humans' ability to adapt under pressure. In moments of desperation, the aliens began emulating the humans' tactics, trying to mimic their fluid movements and quick thinking. But without the foundation of experience and camaraderie, their efforts fell flat. The veterans saw through these attempts with ease, exploiting the aliens' lack of cohesion, pressing forward even harder. The final assault from the alien commanders was swift and brutal. They poured everything they had into one last attempt to overwhelm the human veterans, believing sheer force could win the day. But the veterans, undeterred, used this aggressive charge to their advantage. They drew the alien soldiers into carefully planned traps, forcing them into choke points and ambushes. What the aliens saw as an overwhelming show of power, the veterans saw as an opportunity to strike. By the time the alien soldiers realized their mistake, it was too late. They were surrounded, disoriented, and divided, with no clear command structure to guide them. The Council's last-ditch effort turned into a disaster, with alien forces scattering in confusion. The veterans capitalized on every misstep, pushing the alien soldiers back until they were forced to retreat. For the first time, the Council was forced to acknowledge that their assumptions about human warfare had been wrong. These veterans, who had survived on instincts, adaptability, and unbreakable bonds, had revealed a glaring weakness in the Council's approach to warfare. The Council had depended on technology, on perfection, on precision. But they had overlooked the power of experience, the strength that came from years of struggle and sacrifice. As the last of the alien forces withdrew, the battlefield fell silent, leaving only the veterans standing, weary but victorious. They had shown the galaxy something the Council hadn't anticipated: that strength wasn't just a product of advanced weaponry or youthful vigor. True strength came from a lifetime of battles fought and survived, from a willingness to endure whatever was necessary, and from the unbreakable resolve to keep fighting, no matter the odds. These veterans had reminded the galaxy of something ancient, something that couldn't be engineered or programmed. As the battlefield settled into an eerie silence, the alien soldiers who had managed to retreat regrouped, nursing injuries and casting uncertain glances back toward the ground they had been forced to abandon. Those who had survived looked dazed, as if unable to comprehend how the human veterans, those older, scarred warriors with their outmoded gear, had driven them from the field. For the first time, whispers of respect circulated among the alien ranks. The mockery had faded, replaced by an unwilling admiration for the humans' unyielding will and relentless tenacity. Back at the Council's central command, the high-ranking officials were left in a stunned silence of their own, struggling to reconcile the reports they had just received with the deeply held beliefs they had about humanity. For cycles, they had regarded humans as useful but limited, a species capable of bravery but lacking the technological sophistication that was considered essential in the modern galaxy. Yet here were these human veterans, who had not only held their own but had outmaneuvered and outlasted some of the most advanced troops in the Council's ranks. The Council members reviewed battle footage with grim expressions, noting how the veterans had exploited every weakness, turning what should have been their disadvantages into strategic assets. The humans' aged equipment had been outmatched by alien tech in every possible way, on paper. Yet, it was the humans who had succeeded, displaying an adaptability that no program or simulation had ever accounted for. the council members found themselves in a rare moment of humility, realizing they had been blinded by their own hubris. A senior official stood before the council, delivering an assessment report on the battle. The tone was somber as he admitted that the humans' presence had single-handedly prevented a complete collapse of the line, a fact that would have been dismissed as laughable mere hours before. The report acknowledged not only the veterans' skills but their psychological impact on both the enemy and the council's forces. The humans' unwavering spirit had shaken the enemy's morale and inspired even the council's own troops, who had begun to mirror the veterans' resilience as the battle wore on. For the first time, the council found itself questioning the basis of its military doctrine. The alien troops had relied so heavily on technology that they'd been caught off guard by the veterans' unconventional tactics. Every aspect of their training had been built around predictable scenarios, where tech and precision trumped flexibility and grit. But the humans had shown them a different way, one that valued instinct and courage as much as equipment. It was a revelation that left some council members quietly contemplating a new approach to warfare, one that wouldn't ignore the intangible qualities that the humans had embodied so powerfully. Back on the battlefield, the veterans gathered together, sharing a silent understanding of what had been accomplished. They had proven, once again, that there were things technology could not replace: experience, unity, and an indomitable will. These men and women, who had faced everything from Earth's brutal wars to the unforgiving conditions of the galactic front lines, had once again shown that true strength did not come from gadgets or enhancements. It came from an unbreakable commitment to one another and a deeply ingrained understanding of what it took to survive. The younger alien soldiers who had fought alongside the veterans looked on, their expressions a mixture of respect and awe. They had seen firsthand what these humans were capable of, and it had changed them. Where once they had been dismissive, they now saw the veterans as mentors, warriors from whom there was much to learn. Some approached the humans, asking questions and listening intently to their stories, eager to absorb the lessons that couldn't be found in training programs or textbooks. In the days that followed, stories of the human veterans' valor spread across the galaxy. Other alien factions who had once seen humanity as merely another race in the cosmic hierarchy began to take notice, reevaluating their perceptions. Humanity, once seen as a marginal player, was now regarded with a sense of cautious respect. Even among the Council's most elite ranks, conversations shifted. A new recognition took hold, acknowledging that the humans, while perhaps lacking in technology, possessed a spirit that could tip the scales of any conflict. The Council eventually honored the veterans, holding a ceremony that, while brief, was steeped in the realization that they had misjudged an entire species. The humans accepted the recognition with quiet dignity, unperturbed by the formalities. For them, the real victory lay not in accolades or acknowledgement, but in the fact that they had shown, once again, what humanity was capable of. They had reminded the galaxy that their worth was not defined by technology, rank, or reputation. It was defined by heart and perseverance, qualities that were as enduring as the stars themselves. As the veterans prepared to leave the war zone, one of them paused, looking back at the alien soldiers they had fought beside. There was no sense of triumph in their expression, just the calm satisfaction of a job well done. They had fought not for recognition, but because it was simply what needed to be done. They didn't view themselves as heroes, only as soldiers carrying out their duty, with a loyalty to one another and to the principles they had sworn to uphold. In their wake, they left a legacy that would ripple through the ranks of the Council's forces and beyond. Alien soldiers who had witnessed their bravery began to adopt the humans' approach to combat, seeking to emulate not only their tactics but their indomitable spirit. It was a shift that spread quietly but profoundly, changing the very fabric of the Council's military philosophy. And as the veterans returned to Earth, the galaxy would remember them, not as relics of a bygone era, but as pioneers of a timeless strength that couldn't be quantified or replicated. They had redefined what it meant to be a soldier, leaving a lasting impression on a galaxy that had underestimated them. These veterans, unassuming and unsung, had reminded the galaxy of a truth as old as time: sometimes, the greatest power lies not in weapons or technology, but in the strength of those who stand together, undaunted, against any challenge. In the end, The Council had gained something far more valuable than victory. They had learned to respect a strength they had long dismissed, a strength that came from resilience, unity, and the unshakable courage of a few determined humans who refused to yield.